Whether you keep them in your home or love to see them in theirs, these are the creatures that bring us all together.
Reptiles. We're going to be delving into the experiences of reptile lovers from around the block and around the world. This is the Reptile Talk Podcast. Boom. What is going on, everybody? This is Jeremy Turgeon from Brassman Reptiles.
And I'm Robin. I'm keeping it real.
And we're back because yet again, I'm back from the road. So super excited to be back and super excited for today's guest. But real quick before we bring him on, Rob, how are you doing, man?
Dude, I'm pumped. Most of my babies have hatched out so far this season. I got a clutch of blood pythons. It's about halfway through incubation, and I'm waiting on a couple other things. So, and then I've been doing lots of herping the last week or so. So I can't complain. What about you? What do you got going on?
Heck yeah! I finally have stuff hatching, which is wonderful. A couple clutch ball pythons on the ground, or out, I should say. Some carpets are out. Borneos are out. 90% of the Borneos and carpets have all had their first meals. So I'm like, yes, that's always great to get things to have their first meals. And yeah, I'm happy to be off the road for the next 3.5-ish weeks or something like that. So I can actually like spend some time with my animals and hang and maybe field herp or something.
Go out. Man, you got to get out there.
It's true. But yeah, so that's pretty much the life update for us. I mean, it's been crazy. I am living vicariously through you though on all of the herping. Like, I see all the stories go up and I'm like, yes, thank you.
Get it. That's where it's at, man.
Okay, so super excited for today's guest. And you guys have no idea because we did zero promo for it. So we're just going to slap you with this like Beyonce.
We're sneaking it in there.
Yeah. So we're talking with John Lehmann from Morph Market. Let's get him in here. What's going on?
Hey guys. Thanks for having me on.
To have you on. Yeah, we're pumped to have you on, man.
Heck yeah. Super stoked. Okay, so let's just kick this right off, man. What was the inspiration for creating Morph Market?
Yeah, I've shared before, but I got into reptiles in 2014, and I got a ball python for my family. We were enjoying her, and I kind of got the bug and started to collect more animals, and just found, as we all know, that online at the time there was not a modern platform to buy and sell. And so I found myself in these forums that were lightly modified for the reptile community, searching for specific animals, and the post there, it was all unstructured so that keywords I would put in would hit all across the ads where there's multiple animals. So you just wouldn't be able to pull up what you wanted. Yeah. And coming from a technology background, I just knew we could create something that would be more specific and would be expensive to create because it's custom, to add the genetics and the characteristics that would tailor it to our industry. But I started to build that, and gosh, that was 2015 when we launched initially for ball pythons only, and here we are in 22. So it's coming up on 7 years ago from when we launched.
That is absolutely wild because I think about, previously, I've been doing this forever and looking at some of the other sites where people would list and sell things. Especially when I was like in that, like getting a whole bunch of animals and trying to find specific animals, it was so frustrating to try and go through. If you're looking for a ball python morph and you search something in the ball pythons, people would just put words in there and then you'd get all these ads for things and you have to read through every single ad to try and find out if they had the snake that you're interested in, or whether they were like, hey, I'm looking for this too at the bottom of the ad or whatever. And it was just like so frustrating. And then to see how far and how much Morph Market has grown and changed over the years has been really, really cool. It's amazing. Seriously.
That's great. Yeah, it's been a journey for sure. I mean, the first 5 years of the site, I had a day job, and so it was just me building it and doing for the most part, customer success, like engaging with users, dealing with issues. And it was a lot for sure. So it was really exciting in the middle of COVID in 2020 that I quit my day job, went full time, and then since then have brought a bunch of other people onto the team. Today we have 7 full-time developers. So I'm actually don't write very much code myself these days, but I spend a lot of time as the product manager, listening to users, combining that with ideas that we've had for years, and then working with the developers, designers to bring that to life.
Dude, that's insane. That's insane to think about, but it really is so cool. I mean, yeah, exactly like what Rob was saying. I remember all those years ago trying to just scour any classified ad, and it was like a nightmare. And yeah, I remember when Morph Market launched, I was like, this is quite nice. So yeah, no, it's amazing to see where it's come from and where it's going. And I think one of my favorite parts about Morph Market is the fact that you're always working to evolve what's going on the site. So it's not just a classified site. You've really brought in the engagement from the community with forum posts and all this stuff, and now with Morphpedia and so many other things, just to make it a giant hub and resource for everybody. I mean, like that's so key, man, because it makes you the hub. It makes Morph Market the hub for everything that's going on. And that I think that's absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of value in the different. Originally we were just a marketplace, and since in the last few years have expanded to add, like I said, Morphpedia, the trait knowledge base. This year we've added an event system. Now we've added more animal tracking capabilities. So going in different directions, but a lot of those features work really well when you have the whole community there. For example, the event system. I mean, and that's something that, looking back, Kingsnake had that back in the day, and maybe I'm not sure, maybe it was heavily used back then when the site was more popular. That's a great feature, and so we just added that this year, and hopefully it's great to go on Facebook, and Facebook might pop up an ad for some event near you, but you may not see you're not going to see all the events, right? And you don't have a way to search for them. So using our event calendar, we've got you can look within time ranges and locations, and we'll add more features over as time goes on to be able to, with a map, to be able to see with pins exactly where those events are happening. But it works when there is a centralized place, people are going to use it more, and that brings the value, right? That's why Facebook, as much as we all kind of rail against it, it's still super valuable because everyone's there, and so that's where you're going to reach people. That's where you're going to hear from people in large part. And there's a lot of efforts to, start up a MeWe site or these other platforms, but they're not going to, it's really difficult to get the momentum and engagement, the network, build the network there to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it just reminds me of like when I was younger, like when I was really young and I was into reptiles, there was no internet. And the way that I found out about expos was in Reptiles magazine. At the back of the classifieds, there was a little section that had all the expos if people chose to advertise in reptiles. But that's how I found out about local expos, was because I got Reptiles magazine. I read through it and I go through the classifieds, and then I would look and see where those are. So it just makes sense now. It's very intuitive that you would bring that into the modern era and put that on Morph Market. Because when I talk to people about when they're looking for a specific snake, or everybody's like, oh well, I haven't checked Morph Market yet. It's not like I haven't looked for it yet. I haven't checked Morph Market yet. And it's like people have kind of, they might check some other things, but the people I talk to, they're like, oh man, I have to, I've been on Morph Market, like looking every single day just for this one thing. And it's not like I'm looking for it. They're looking on Morph Market. And that's like the place to go. So when you can expand and have those little bit of extra things for people like the expos and the community and that sort of stuff, it really does provide a huge resource to the community and to the people who are using the site. And you got a USARC thing on your shirt right there with Morph Market, the ability for people to donate to USARC through there. It's just like, it makes sense,
And so things we do for we work, Phil's a friend and we work with them, and things we've done so far, we give when there's USARK alerts, we get those go straight to our homepage. So we're helping promote those, and we always have USARK right on our homepage about them with links to them, so because people coming into the hobby don't know about USARK, so we need to always be educating them about who they are and why they exist and why they're so important. We've added sellers can have badges, and so we give
Yep.
recognition to those people who are supporting USARK directly with memberships. And I think that's been really valuable based on the amount of interaction I've had with users about that. I think that's been working.
Yep.
And then finally, we're going to be adding the ability to pay through Morph Market onto our site soon, to be able to create orders and accept payments. That'll go through pretty much straight through to the other party. But in that process, we plan to add on both sides, the ability to donate, like you just said, Rob, to USARK. Now, you've got other services like Ship Your Reptiles who make it really easy to give donations. But that's, as far as I know, they all operate on the seller side. So the seller can donate some money. So here, I feel like we have an opportunity to make it easy for the buyer, and the sellers typically are breeders, and breeders are typically, hopefully, already members of Morph Market, but the buyers may not be. So I feel like being able to make it easy for them to donate to USARK will be really good. I think that's going to be a nice revenue stream for USARK, and even options for like sellers to match. Maybe they'd say I'd match dollar for dollar up to this amount, and just make that streamlined all in that purchasing system.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I was, just to echo Rob a little bit, I was just down in Georgia the other day bringing some snakes down, and I was talking to one of the customers at the shop, and they're like, they saw me bringing stuff, and they're like, "Oh, is that stuff that hasn't hit your Morph Market yet?" And I'm like, "You know about Morph Market?" Quite a few snakes then, my friend. But yeah, it really has become the commonplace, for everybody. And I think that really is amazing. And bringing USARK to the forefront, you're absolutely right. The people that are, just kind of scouring, looking for that next breeder animal or next pet, a lot of those guys don't necessarily know about USARK. So to have it, integrated in is huge. I've talked for a while about how, like pet store customers, first time reptile keepers and stuff, like they're almost the forgotten soldiers, so to speak, when it comes to USARK, because they're incredibly valuable, to fight, help us fight against that stuff. But if they don't know about it, they can't do it. So I think it's awesome the way that you're integrating that into Morph.
And they're probably the largest audience too, right? Because if you imagine the engagement in the hobby / industry being like a pyramid, there's at the top you've got full-time big operations, below that you have full-time breeders, below that you have hobby breeders, the very base you have the largest number of people who have one, they're a family, they have a pet, and they might take some actions to contact their senator or make a donation, at least a one-time donation. So I think that's important to channel that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely, we had talked about before, definitely want to talk about some of the newer features that are coming up and that are starting to become available on Morph Market. So let's talk about some stuff like the animal manager and offspring groups, those kind of things. So what is that bringing now to the table for users and purchasers?
So we made some big changes at the beginning of 2022 we haven't replaced, but we've created a new, previously sellers would be familiar with the page on Morph Market called inventory, and that's where they would create their ads. And we've created a whole new system that's more so a lot of the pages on the site, are 2015 designs, right? They're better than, the old forums, let's say, but they're still not as modern as they could be. And a lot of them were designed by me, and I might have a little bit of an affinity to design, but I'm not a professional designer. So we have a professional designer now that you've seen Morphpedia and the newer pages coming out, how they have a different look to them. So the animal manager, has that new design and all the features we've wanted and had requested for the last 7 or so years. The ability to Also the transition and even the terminology, right? Before it was inventory, because it's kind of like an inventory of advertisements. Now everything's an animal, because you might have an animal that's for sale, and that would be a listing, or you might have an animal that's not for sale, and you, for the purpose of either just keeping track of all your records within the system, or for the purpose of having some of those be public, so that your followers, people that are checking out your store, can see, okay, these are the animals, these are the breeding animals Rob's working with. Wow, they're beautiful. I'm really interested in that. And it just gives more and more ways to connect breeders and keepers. So the new animal manager, new new design, new features in terms of being able to manage the animals in different states. Visibilities, private, public, unlisted. If you want to show it to somebody, but you don't want everybody to see it unless you've shared it with them. Features like the ability to select multiple animals at once and apply an action to them.
Cool.
There's tons and tons of features. A big one is, an inspiration from spreadsheets. A lot of breeders use spreadsheets to track, and myself included, to track data. And so one of the beautiful things about spreadsheets is you don't have to click and then go to a whole other page to make edits to those values. You can just edit them right on the page. And so people, even today, using Morph Market, might even not realize in the animal manager, a lot of the values, when you're looking at your rows with your animals, a lot of those values, you can just click on them and then change them right there without having to go to a different page. So,
cool.
Powerful features like that, it comes in from spreadsheet. We are experienced with systems like Shopify. We're checking out all the modern platforms and incorporating those features into the system that you guys have that's available to you. So that's some of the, I guess, highlights of the animal manager. And then Offspring is a more recent extension of the whole animal management system. It's actually a different page within the website where you can manage your offspring groups. Now, the reason we use the term offspring group is because it's generic across all the different species, right?
Yeah.
It includes whether you got clutches or litters or egg sacs or whatever it is. It's an offspring group on Morph Market.
Right.
And because in the beginning, of course, starting ball python, some of our terminology was clutch centric, right? And so we're trying to kind of generalize that over time. And so offspring groups allows you to record the groups of animals as they were hatched or birthed. You can create it, so it has the whole life cycle. So from the beginning, when you pair animals and the female's gravid, you can create the offspring group at that point. And then as animals, if it's a egg-laying species, as they hatch, you can record those egg stats. And then once the animals are birthed, there's a little wizard, so you can just say basically generate 5.2 or whatever it is, and it'll create the animal entries for you right there. You can click in that table and update them. And then the cool thing is, if you decide to list some for sale, a few months out, all you have to do is change the status to for sale, because they default to not for sale. Because of course in the beginning you're getting the first couple feedings, but then you convert into for sale. So, and there's other cool things too with that little wizard. It considers the genetics of the parents, and so if both parents are homozygous for some trait, then it knows that the children would be as well. So it's going to pre-populate the traits in that manner, but then you can click and change them pretty easily. So offspring groups is the ability for you to create those groups for your own record keeping, for your, for preparing the listings, and for the coolest part probably is for making them public, so that again, people who are kind of tracking your store, your followers, your people that are potential buyers, they're able to see those offspring groups, see what's coming, and already get excited about that for when you list it for sale. So I think that covers the, and probably we can talk about alerts, but there's also a potential for those people, your followers, to get alerts when Jeremy has just created, you just created the offspring group. They can already see, they're notified that clutches or litter is dropped, and can engage you about it.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
That is super cool. That's awesome, because I think about like in the carpet python community and the blood and short tail community, where you've got people who like, they name their animals and stuff, and the purpose of that is like, people are like, I want an animal from lightning to whatever, so they like watch for that. So if you are really utilizing Morph Market to its fullest capacity, and essentially end up with those alerts, like there's a bunch of people, especially in those realms, that would be like, yes, finally, I've been waiting, for this exact thing. I think that's awesome to generate that immediate engagement, because otherwise, people are just posting it, on like an Instagram story or something like that. So it's like, unless they're, really glued to their phone, they might miss it, and then they miss an opportunity to get something, or, some created a wait list for whatever, they might miss that opportunity. So just, again, another way that Morph Market is making itself a hub, for all this information, which I think is awesome. One of the things that I know you guys have unleashed as well has been the dashboard features, which I think is really cool. I've enjoyed kind of tinkering around and looking through all of that stuff, because I think it's really easy as a breeder. I certainly wouldn't call myself large scale, but producing a few hundred animals every year, I'm not necessarily, outside of what I'm looking at when I'm logging everything into spreadsheets, I'm not really looking at total values. I'm not necessarily breaking everything down in those exact moments. So to see that right in front of you and just have that immediate, like, this is what's happening, like, this is what you have going on, like, that's quite eye-opening, and in a great way, in a really great way. So what was the thought process behind that?
Well, I think the dashboard, right now, when you log in, you've got to go to the dashboard. Some people may not even know about it. We're going to reorganize the flows on the whole site so things make more sense in the future. But there's a lot of value in aggregating or generalizing that, all those particular data points, right, to see the trends and patterns. So the dashboard is, the goal there would be, that's the first place you log into. You can see a summary of all of your data. It's really useful. Another benefit is, as we've added a little more complexity, our goal is, we're adding more features and we're trying to keep the system from not getting too complicated, right? And that's challenging. It's a balancing act. But an example of an element of complexity that's been added in the animal manager that I mentioned, 6 months ago, you now have, these animals, they have state, which would be like for sale, not for sale, loaned, etc. State, they have visibility, they can be public, private, unlisted. And then there's a third value called whether it's active or not, because you have, for other reasons, you may make it an active listing or an inactive listing. Some of that, or animal, some of that comes into capacities. And so depending on your membership, like, you may not have the capacity at your level to have, some ads. And so you may make them that. Anyway, the point is, there's 3 different values there, which creates a lot of combinations. It gets a little confusing. So the dashboard, one nice thing is, you can see in the top section, it's got your listings, which are for sale or on hold, items which are public and active. But you can see, real quickly at a glance, I've got 2 listings that are not, or 2 listings that aren't active. So then you can click and see, they're not active because they're expired, and you can go address it. So otherwise, within the animal manager, in all the rows, you can kind of get, lost in that. So the goal would be, it's a top level, 30,000 foot view, so you can see everything's where it should be. And we intend to add more. That's kind of the 1.0 version. We're going to add obvious features, the obvious next feature for the animal manager, because it has your listings, and then it has your collection, which is pretty much all the animals in your possession right now, which would include your listings, but also not for sale, loaned, that sort of thing. And then it has your kind of like all-time history at the bottom. But we want to obviously add in date filters, so you can slice and dice. Okay, what about last year? Compare that to this year and see those trends over time.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's something that I was constantly looking at on Shopify, was the trends from last year to this year, and seeing what amount of money you're making and when you see spikes in sales and things like that. So that's really cool that you'll be able to do that through Morph Market now. That's awesome.
Another example of a cool feature that comes from aggregating data is something we're planning, is to add another section, which is breeding projects. And so it's kind of a precursor to the offspring, where offspring, at that point, you've already paired, you've got a gravid female, right? But before that, you're planning to pair animals, then you're pairing them, and then you're getting locks and all that. So that'll be in this new section called, you know, breeding projects. But one cool feature there will be that ties into the aggregation idea is, so you've got 100 animals and you're doing, maybe you have 30 females, and let's imagine they're all ball pythons, for example, and you want to know not just like what's the you know, using our calculator, what's the likely offspring for that clutch, but if all of these 30 females go this year, what's the distribution of all the morphs that I'm going to get from those 30 clutches? And so we'll have a page where it shows, not, you know, if you're familiar with the calculator and how it'll have like, here's the potential, but imagine that from 30 pairings or 30 clutches, you could see if you're really wanting to hit some particular combo, you might get it from several clutches. Now you can see what's the odds of getting it from any of those altogether.
Mm-hmm.
That's
pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's literally Morph Market's becoming the supercomputer. And I'm here for it, man. I'm so here for it. I think that's awesome. So speaking of all the morphs and all the genetic outcomes and stuff, so you've established Morphpedia on the site, which I thought was awesome, especially, you know, so we're just talking about like having a database of all of the morphs as they, you know, as breeders start working with them and everything like that. And I think the biggest thing that I was excited about with that is the breeder input section of it. So, because I think especially we start to see it more now as more people are really diving into the morph game and ball pythons and like boas and stuff like that. People are starting to nitpick the little things that they notice within a morph. You know, obviously there's those underlying, you know, key traits with certain things, but you know, I think the more eyes that are on it, the more people will start to see other things. So I think allowing the breeder's input in that is invaluable, you know, just so you get all those different aspects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Morphpedia is truly a community effort, and you know, there's a lot of cool things about it. Whether it's, you know, in the past you have, you know, there's a number of websites that have created this sort of a knowledge base for a specific species, but to have them all in one spot again is really nice. And then it can leverage, you know, we've got some pretty nice design and feature set around that, and so that all the species are benefiting from it at the same time. And but Jeremy, to what you're saying as far as community input, that's a really critical part, because in the past, especially, and also because the articles they don't just have some photos and a date and, you know, a couple facts. Like, they're rich articles that have the history. It's like paragraphs of text, history, characteristic, controversy, all that stuff. Yeah. And our goal is to preserve all those detail. Like, say, where there's anything controversial, our goal is not to just pick a viewpoint and just summarize it to that, but to preserve both viewpoints as long as there's multiple reasonable viewpoints, right? Mm-hmm. And getting probably everyone doesn't know yet, because Morphpedia is not even a year old, but when you're on a Morphpedia page on our website, you can click there's a couple of links to contribute. That'll go back to our forums, which is where there is one article, or a forum topic, they would call it, that is where that article is being generated from. And anybody, you know, in our forums can go and make a comment on that article and say, hey, that's wrong, or you need to add this, or I disagree with that. And, you know, so we can get all the viewpoints, and there can be a discussion there too. And it's all public and preserved, right? So people, you know, there's a lot of, for example, good conversations on Facebook that happen, but can anyone locate them? They disappear, right? And or Facebook kills a whole group, and then all of that knowledge is gone. You know, that was, even if you could find it in the group, it's all gone, you know, from all those years. So this is a privately hosted, controlled by effectively the reptile community. So all those conversations are preserved, and a lot of people, especially the old timers, appreciate the old days of the forums. And that's one of the benefits of the forums, is that it was under the control of the reptile community. You had those forums are designed to preserve those conversations and make them discoverable, unlike social media, which is more about always showing you the newest thing to get the clicks and likes and all that. So all of that's in the forums. Everyone's invited to go there, and then we have a team of moderators who incorporate bits of the conversation into the articles themselves.
Heck yeah, I think that's so huge, man. I one of the things that I've always I guess gotten irritated by is just the fact that, like, there's never really been a sound space to find, this history part of what's happened in the industry thus far, unless you're willing to really freaking dig, or buy a book or something, if you can find a book that's still in print, for certain things. So to have that really preserved in one spaces, that's to me, that's invaluable. This industry, especially in the last few years, has just started like taking off, at such a high speed. And, the number of people that are just getting into this that have no idea of the last, essentially 30 years of what's happened, 30 years plus, to be able to go to one place and just click somewhere and be like, oh my gosh, now I've just gotten the chance to learn about the last 15 years of this morph and the struggles of this, stuff like, whenever I'm showing people a snake for the first time, I usually try to pull out like a pied ball python, because I think that's probably one of the more striking ball python morphs. And, they're like, wow, that's the coolest thing ever. And it's like, yeah, could you imagine it's been around for 20 something years? And they're like, this is the first time I've ever seen one, here, take a look at this, it's just another gateway, to really introduce people to what we do, and I think, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but the history aspect of, the breeding game and some of these genetic morphs and across multiple species is some of the most interesting stuff, especially from the inception, because that's when the struggles were real, like, it's an imported animal, please don't die, so I think that's just another invaluable resource that you guys are providing to the community, and I think that's why Morph Market is as popular as it is, and will continue to be just as relevant, because it's bringing everything to the table in one place, and that's just so important.
And gateway is a good term for Morphedia too, because it's like Wikipedia, right? You're maybe 80%, 90% of the time when you go to Wikipedia, you're looking for something, you find a bit of information, it satisfies your need. But Wikipedia is heavily the citations are heavily used, right? And same with Morphpedia, we're not trying to replace books or other academic resources. We want to point to them. So we got that was a core feature from the beginning, was to be able to add the footnotes and all that, so people can see where, as much as possible, we're going to cite where that information came from, so people can go, if they want to drill deeper, they can go into the book or wherever that was from.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Okay, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break to run our sponsor plug, and then we'll be right back. Black Box Cages, located in Buford, Georgia, is your one-stop shop for all of your caging and rack needs. Owners Jen and Clint are at the helm of this fantastic company. With one of the shortest lead times in cage and rack manufacturing, Black Box can satisfy anyone's needs, from baby racks to V70s, arboreal and terrestrial caging to deep-fronted bioactive enclosures. You can find everything you need right here. New enclosure sizes and products are added frequently to their availability, so be sure to check back often. Black Box Cages have tons of customizing options for lighting and heating. Along with that, cages and racks can be stacked with metal stacking dowels, and all cage joints are dadoed for improved durability and stability. Most cage units are flat packed, but are pre-assembled prior to shipping to ensure a solid build every time. The Micro, XC18, XT3, BioG, and 3-stack V70 ship assembled, and all other racks are shipped freight and assembled. The XR16 and XR20 model racks allow keepers to mix and match tubs. Fitting both Vision and Freedom Breeder tubs, you can mix the V15, V18, and V35S tubs, or the FB5, FB8, and FB35CV SC tubs. This kind of flexibility allows keepers to raise their animals from hatchling to juvenile or subadult size before needing to upgrade into adult caging. Don't just take our word for it. Go to their website to see countless customer reviews and review videos from keepers all over. To learn more about Black Box Cages, follow them on Facebook and Instagram at Black Box Cages, and of course their website, www.blackboxcages.com. Links to their socials and website will be available in the podcast description. Bam. So as always, a massive shout out to Jen and Clint over at Black Box Cages. I am still loving my black boxes from my Amazon tree boas, and I think I'm getting more. But so yeah, shout out to them. Go check out all their stuff. Like I said, all the info for them will be in the podcast description. And yeah, go buy yourself a nice fancy cage. Just do it because you are gonna enjoy it. Oh man. Okay, so there's a lot of new stuff that's continuously happening with Morph Market. So some of the things that you were telling me about. So now we've got regions, a mobile app that'll be available in the app stores. So let's talk about some of that stuff. What's coming in the future?
Sure. Yeah. So the app has been overdue. I mean, we've had an app of sorts for the last year, but it's not in the app stores. And one of the critical points of getting it into the app store is because then, in particular with Apple, it will allow us to deliver notifications right to the phone, right? And so that's going to be huge because then, most people are probably aware when you converse with between buyers and sellers on the site, you can use email, but you can also on the site we have a messenger and send messages back and forth. That way, we want to move more and more that direction to using the messenger and get away from email. We don't want to discontinue email, but it's just a more reliable mode of communication when we're in control of it, because email, you have all kinds of filtering from the different providers and stuff that can occasionally cause emails to be lost. So by having having our app in the app store, we'll be able to deliver messages or notifications right to your phone when you're getting messages from another user, as well as the ability to alert you when somebody you're following has posted something that you're interested in, or you've created a search and you've saved it and that animal popped up for sale, and so you get an email alert and or the mobile notification. So there's a lot of benefit.
Yeah.
We'll be able to use those notifications in a lot of powerful ways.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing about the app. The regions, we've had regions for years. I think in 2017 we added Europe and then South Africa. We hadn't added any more regions since then, and we've just in the spring been restructuring how regions work. There were some challenges because the way regions were set up originally. For example, if we wanted to, users want to search, maybe for example, they want to look in Europe and or say take the United States, they want to shop in both Canada and the US at the same time because it's actually pretty easy to import from Canada, right? And so Canada was part of the US region, which was really the North America. It's really US and Canada is what it was representing. But let's say somebody only wants to look in the US or only in Canada. Well, now you can do that because you can pick, in the location option on all the different parts of the site, whether you're in the events or looking at animals for sale or breeders, you can choose, okay, I want to look at US and Canada, or I want to look at Canada, or I want to look at US. So you get that whole, or all, you can look at all regions over the whole world. So you have a lot more control over where you're looking. So now the UK has its own region, but you can also look at Europe, or you could just look at the European Union, which would exclude the UK because it's a lot more difficult to ship, across that body of water. And so we're excited because we're going to start adding new regions now. And we've been working with Miguel, and we're about to add launch Mexico. And there's a lot of Mexico is a real booming industry that I didn't even know about that until about a year ago, but things really taking off there. So they're excited, we're excited, and hopefully within the next month that'll go live as well to add that Mexican region.
That's awesome. That's really cool because I mean, I don't have a lot of people I follow who are in Mexico, but I do follow a few select breeders over there. And as they're going to other people's collections and seeing the amount of people who do like retics and ball pythons and some of the stuff like that, it's just like that's really cool. That's really cool that now they'll have a hub like the people of the US do to come to do buying and selling and trading and all that sort of stuff. That's awesome.
And then another thing that we're actually in the process of launching right now, and I'm going to try to share my screen and see if this works out very, very well. Actually, let me stop that. Stop cam, start cam, share screen. There we go. All right, can you guys see my window now?
Yes.
Yeah.
That work. Okay, so this is, so you're familiar with the index page on Morph Market, right? This is kind of the hub if you're at the home page and you're drilling into a specific type of animal, say carpet pythons. This is where you can kind of get the bird's eye view of the different genes and traits and how many animals are listed for each of those traits, right? And subcategories with the different species or subspecies. So we've redesigned this page, and we're it's kind of maybe you may have noticed, because we're now replacing pages on the site that are heavily used. We kind of learned our lesson with the messenger, because we did kind of a hard launch on that and just switched it. And now I like to do what I call a soft launch, where the first way you'll see the new page showing up is with this try new design type link. And when you click on that, it'll switch you over. But if you're like, oh man, this is broken, you can go right back to the old version as well. And it's kind of sticky, so it'll remember. And now if we come back out to the home page and we go back in, it's going to jump us to the new one because we've opted to that for the time being. But this is the new index page, and you can see it looks a lot cleaner. But the other cool thing about this page, I like to call it the Trait Explorer now, because it's not just a list of words, but you've actually got little cards with photos of those, in whether it's a subcategory or whether it's the gene. And then you've got, and this looks a lot like Morphpedia, right? And that's kind of where this design came from. You can control, if I just wanted to look at the subcategories and deselect everything, and I can just see those.
Oh, wow.
Or if I just wanted to see incomplete dominant traits, I can filter to those. Especially maybe in carpets we don't have, but I think there's like 30 something cards there, but other places like ball pythons, there's a couple hundred, so it can really help you kind of navigate around, look at recessive things, switch between for sale and sold. And then you can come down here and you can actually look at combos as well. So this is neat because before we had the combos page, but it didn't show you on the page what traits were in the combo. So you can already be learning what's a ghost in carpet pythons or sunglow. And I'm sure that'll solicit more feedback from our users. I'm sure there'll be some things that we need to tune there. But and then finally, you can, of course, you can change the region. But something you couldn't do before also in the old index, and this created confusion. Quite often, people would say, "Oh, you don't have such and such a trait in your system," and we would say, "Well, we do actually. We just don't have anything for sale right now. That's why that item's not showing up." So now if you want to see all the traits that are in the database, even if we have no ads, you can check this box. And so we can see like inland carpet python. That probably wasn't showing up, or labyrinth is an incomplete dominant. So you can see everything. Change how many items you want to see, if you want to see everything on one page. And it's nice and snappy because everything's sent to your browser, and then when you're doing the filtering and sorting and all that, it happens immediately because it's already in your browser. It's not having to go back to our servers. So
that's
like that.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my god, finding animals for sale is so much easier right now. Like, I'm just going right back to the beginning of the podcast. Like, I remember looking at the back of Reptiles magazine to now I can find exactly what I'm looking for with just a couple of clicks of a mouse. Like, that's amazing.
That's wild.
Oh my god. Wow. So one of the other things we were talking about was now Morph Market is working on being able to be the hub for orders and having payments come through and everything like that. So yet again, just becoming a more centralized space for people to do their business, which I think is awesome. So was that something that you always wanted to bring to Morph Market, or was it just something where you're like, hey, look, we've already got these guys for 90% of the journey. Let's take it the last 10%.
Yeah, I just think there's always room to do better. There's always room to either add new features or to improve the features we have. And we want to evolve with the industry. We want to evolve with technology. And if we just stop, then the platform will become obsolete over time, right? So it's just been a matter. I would say that we're still rolling out all these major features, most of them at least. They've probably been on our list for years, In fact, we have an issue tracking system, right, where we, if there's a bug, we'll create a ticket for that, or if there's an idea, we'll create a ticket. And over time, we're in the 3,000s now, is how many different tickets now. And mind you, some of those tickets represent months of work. They're not like 1 hour of work. That can be huge. They could be small. They could be huge. So we're still in the process actually of rolling out, I would say, core ideas that we've had for years, right? For example, taking payments through the site. I mean, that's kind of obvious. I mean, it's not that creative necessarily. The detail comes in. How do you do that in a way that's really streamlined? How do you do it so it supports people who are, we want to support sales that are happening, like even if they maybe it's a sale that happened at a show, but the breeder, and so the sales already happened, but the breeder wants to record it, so it's part of their data. So we got to accommodate that. We got to accommodate, we'll have a way to pay through the site. And when I say pay through the site, what I mean is we'll integrate with Square, for example. So we're not building the payment system ourselves, but we'll integrate with a payment provider like Square, right? So pay through that, or maybe they paid in cash, or maybe they paid through some other method besides Square that we didn't support. So that happens off-site. So our payment system or our order system will support that as well. So making it very flexible so it can account for, and they bought this animal that was on Morph Market, but also this animal that wasn't listed there too. So accounting for all those different flows makes it challenging, but also will make it really powerful, so that as a breeder, you can have all your information at one spot. It'll also, to the extent that buyers are paying through the site, it will give our team more visibility into those transactions so that when we do step in, because even up until now, I mean, even though we don't take payment to the site, we have a full dispute process when something goes wrong that we can step in. And if they weren't able to work it out, we listen to both sides and drive it to some kind of a conclusion. And so it'll just help. It'll give us even more information to be able to do that, having that visibility, especially when it comes to situations where, the vast majority of our sales execute with no problem at all. Less than, a fraction of a percent, we have problems. Like a fraction of a percent, are scams like on any platform. When that happens, we do our best to help, buyers get their money back if it was the seller running a scam. But we ultimately have no control over the PayPal and how they rule in a case. If payments are run through our site, I mentioned Square, but we're actually planning to use a different platform that is made for marketplaces like ours, and they have built-in escrow service. So we're going to have escrow as an option, and it'll be a really valuable, maybe a required option for new sellers. So if you're brand new and you're selling and we don't know who you are, we might require that you take payment if someone's buying through the site in escrow. And that way it'll make it really challenging for someone to come on for the first time and make some fake ads and take money without, number one, we'll have visibility, and we also might throttle the number of transactions you can do if you're brand new, right? Just to get us, once you've done a few sales, okay, this is because scammers they don't do a few good sales and then start scamming. I mean, those are the cases, honestly, that does rarely happen, very rarely happen. And those are the most disturbing to me. Someone has done a number of sales over the years, and all of a sudden they go kind of AWOL. It doesn't happen very much, but most of the problems are the brand new seller. It's a brand new seller, right? And there's warnings all over our site about be very careful. And we don't discourage buying from new sellers, but if you are a new buyer and you don't have experience in the hobby and know how to, if you haven't used our site, you don't know that there's ratings, all that stuff, then you shouldn't be buying from a brand new seller. But if you did, then if you had escrow, that would help a lot to protect you. So those are some of the different value that the order system will provide.
That sounds really freaking cool. Because I can't tell you how many people have been like, oh man, I almost got scammed because I saw this deal that looked too good to be true. And I just really wanted to jump on it because, and just to be able to have that kind of safety net for newer people would be really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. Becoming the safety net as well, so people just feel that much more confident. I mean, I've still come across people who are like, I'd rather wait until I find what I'm looking for and buy it at a show or buy it at a shop rather than deal with purchasing online, just because there's all, I mean, as technology progresses and scammers, get better at technology, it's a valid fear. So I think that's awesome, taking those extra steps to really just be like, hey, look, we're trying to make the experience great for everybody, and God forbid if something happens, we've got you covered. That's everything.
Huge.
Yeah, that's for everything, man. I'm super excited for that to be launched. So I guess the next question really becomes, obviously you have all these things that are about to happen in the coming months and year. Is there anything that you're like waiting to just start initiating for Morph Market? That's like, you're like, it's been on this list for so long and I just want to make it happen.
Yeah, a couple of those bigger things that aren't in the next couple of months but are really exciting. One would be what I would call market analytics. So ironically, that was really, if you go even behind the the story I told earlier about wanting to bring the better search to the industry. But when I first started writing code, I was actually writing code for myself to better understand animal pricing with the different genes and combinations and all that. And so that's when I started to gather some data, and it was very quickly after I kind of pivoted into the marketplace idea. But the original, in fact, the code name of Morph Market in the code is ball price, because ball pythons and prices. So ball price is the code name for the project. And but that's something we have not we really haven't. I mean, and honestly, that might be the most universally used feature of Morph Market, is the ability to go on the site, look for a certain kind of animal, either being sold now or in the past, and look at the prices and establish a market price. Even there's even like pet shop owners who just do retail in person will tell me, oh yeah, I use Morph Market, I use it to figure out the pricing. Or people that sell at expos maybe aren't using our expo features yet, which allow attendees to show up at the venue, pull the map up, see all the vendors in the room. And we have expo features now that benefit expo sellers, but aside from that, they'll still use it to set their pricing. So market analytics is really exciting to see both trend, whether it's more micro things, like I have this animal that just I just entered that animal in the system and it's suggesting pricing, or at least giving you some links so you can quickly get to that the data you want. Or it's more macro stuff like trends in the industry with and we have a little bit of the trend stuff. We kind of added a little tease of it on Morphpedia. If you go to the very bottom, you can see the relative availability of that trait over time, and so we got a little chart in there.
Oh, that's cool.
But there's 1,000 times more we can do with that data. So that's a whole area that we're collecting the data right now, but we haven't unleashed it, so to speak, in terms of the analytics. But we have in the last year, I'll say, put effort into that, in the sense of improving in the back end the way we're tracking the data, so that when price changes are made or things like that, we're capturing each of those changes, so it's more detailed and accurate. But we'll still be able to work with the data we have prior to that. But moving forward, what we're capturing is going to be more useful to the analytics. So that's kind of one big area. And another big area would be allowing or providing the platform for selling more than just the animals. Also being able to buy and sell like the substrate or caging or other equipment and all that stuff. Art. I mean, there's a whole list of things that people sell in the industry. So it'd be really cool to be able to, rodents and prey items, like that would be another part of that. Supplies and feeders and stuff. So in the nearer term, I think once we roll out orders, then we have like almost the notion of a shopping cart on the site. We'll be able to, I'd say sooner, allow breeders to be able to sell their own merchandise there as well. So someone can drop an animal into, they can be purchasing an animal and say, hey, I want to add that shirt as well. So that's something, once we have that framework in place, we can add that too. But those are two big projects that are, not in the next 3 months, but like in the next year, I would say we'd like to be working on those.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's really cool, because people right now are really about the stickers and the t-shirts and the the hats and getting branded stuff to go with, and then some breeders just add that a little bit of extra when you buy from them. But it's cool to be able to have all those things available through Morph Market. That's awesome. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm very excited. I'm always excited when I see you post something on Facebook about some new feature, like, hey, go check this out. This is what we just launched on Morph Market. I'm like, okay, I need to look at this right now. It's been amazing to watch the progression. Again, as we said earlier, from where Morph Market has started to where it's going, where it is now, and where it's going in the future. I mean, again, being this centralized hub and making all these improvements that benefit both the seller and the purchaser. I think in the past, everything's been really one-sided to the seller. We've got all these benefits for you because you pay for the account, you do this, you do that, so we're going to take care of you. And the buyer, not to say the buyer gets gypped on that, but they're just kind of like, okay, well, I'm here to buy this thing and I'm going to just click it and here we go. So to have this really become an equal playing field, really, and having all this information that's available to everybody that gets involved and that comes and checks out the site. I mean, that's invaluable, and again, just really speaks volumes to what you and your team are doing and the validity of Morph Market now to however long in the future. I hope it just continues to grow and is amazingly successful. And it sounds like if that's what's happening in the next year, I'm excited to know what's going to come the year after that.
Yeah, you're right as far as it's very complex to run a company that has basically a three-sided marketplace where there's us, there's the buyer, and the seller. And so sometimes, we'll have sellers come to us and say, hey, like, you need to side with me because I'm the one paying you money if they're like a member of Morph Market. But in reality, we do concern ourselves with the sellers, obviously, but also the buyers, because they are, arguably they're both our customers, right? And right now, buyers don't fund this site or maybe never will directly provide revenue to Morph Market to support us, but they indirectly do. And if the buyers weren't there, the sellers wouldn't be there. So both sides are important. And then thirdly, we have to consider, well, there's us. So fourthly, we have to consider the industry and the market as a whole. Sometimes we make decisions that neither the buyer nor the seller like, but it's specifically like in a situation, but that's what's best for the industry. So it is a challenge to run that. But we do our very best, and we evolve over time. We evolve our policies, and there's situations that come up, and I'm like, hey, let's revisit that because I think this new situation, has given us some things to think about. So we're always trying to do better at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as buyers,
no, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Rob. I was going to jump into something else.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, like, do you still feel a lot of pressure for people as far as like venomous stuff on the site?
I do get the requests from time to time, but that's a great example of where, like, personally, and honestly, probably no one on our team has any problems with people keeping venomous, but the problem is our platform makes it so easy to buy and sell, and it makes that animal so available. And it's like you were talking to Phil the other week, and you guys were talking about having like a acquisition sheet. I thought that was a good idea. I took a note. I was like, that's a good idea for some species. Well, once we have the order system built into the flow, then we could maybe, before, as part of that process, have for certain species, or the breeder could opt in to turn on, okay, I want to collect this information from the buyer before they can even send the inquiry. Because but anyway, we don't, even though we support keeping venomous, we don't want to make it extremely accessible either, because we know that one person who shouldn't have one will let it get out, and it's a news story, and all of a sudden another state lost, they lost some freedoms. So
right.
Great example.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, I will plug this in just because it's super relevant for Rob and I. But today is the last day for people to sign up for tomorrow's Raleigh meeting for the Wild Dangerous Animal Hearing. So if you're listening, this will go up later today or tomorrow. So if you're listening, hopefully those North Carolina residents are already involved and engaged. And if you're listening to this later, please just make sure you're supporting USARK and paying attention to the website and the alerts. You can find the alerts on Morph Market and see what's going on as well if you're on Morph Market more than you are on USARK, which I think might be most of us. But please go check that out and make sure you're supporting USARK and everything that they're doing for us, because they are a vital part of this industry.
Hell yeah.
Man.
All right. So we're probably winding down. We're getting close to hitting that hour. But we do ask every guest that we have on the show one very important question to kind of wrap things up. And that question is, in the greater umbrella of reptiles, whether it be something that you're doing, something you've seen someone else doing, something that you're working on with Morph Market or the like, what is something under the greater realm of reptiles? What's something in the realm of reptiles that has got you excited about reptiles right now?
That's hard. That's a broad question.
It's very broad.
There's so many, because there's so many levels, right? It's like, what level am I thinking at? I mean, if I were just going to plug another feature of Morph Market, I would say the one thing I'm really excited about is, I alluded to it earlier, but didn't speak directly to it, regarding the animal manager. So the animal manager and the ability to manage records for your animals on Morph Market, up until a month ago, was only a feature available to sellers. So you had to be selling, and then you could maintain that. Now we opened that up within the last month, and we haven't even announced it very broadly yet. But anybody now, you can go and sign up as a user, as a buyer/user, right, on Morph Market, and you can create an account in like 2 minutes, and you can immediately start adding your animals into the system, and then your offspring groups, and tracking your animals. So I'm personally really excited, kind of going into what Jeremy was just saying as far as not neglecting the users. I'm really excited to start exposing. I mean, that's a professional animal management system that's now available to everyone, up to 50 animals for free to any user. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see how that's used by the community. Because in terms of sellers, we have maybe 6,000 or 7,000 sellers, breeders on Morph Market at any given time listing animals. But there's a much, much bigger base of animal keepers and lovers. And I'm really excited to be rolling out features for them. There's that. There's the ability to, we already have like an ability to favorite animals, but we're revamping that so it has all the features of the animal manager as well. And then also a third thing would be the expos. We talked about how we have the expo list, but it's a lot more than just a calendar. For a lot of those events, you can drill in and see the vendor list. You can see a map for the that show. So I used it myself at a show a couple months ago when I was, I'm looking to talk. I'm like, where's Jeremy vending at? Type in Jeremy, immediately drops the pin on the map, and I know where, Tenley, where among those 200 booths where you are at. So
that's cool. Yeah.
I'm really excited to be adding, as well as the and through the app, adding all of these features for the users and getting feedback from them on what they like, what needs to be changed, and just seeing how that evolves. So.
Hell yeah, that's awesome, man. I love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. I'm really excited to see how the community starts using this. That's really cool.
Absolutely. Okay, man. Rob, we did a role reversal today.
I know.
On this last question. Okay, so John, if people want to find out more about you /Morph Market, where can they go to find that?
Obviously on the website. We're always putting out the newsworthy items into our blog, which show up on the homepage. So if you want to follow the blog, just check that out. Or you can follow me on Facebook. I'm kind of maxed out on my friend limit, but you can follow me, and I'm always posting stuff there as well. So those are two places to get updates. If you want to get a hold of us, the best way is to shoot it, either through our site or shoot an email to support@morphmarket.com. And our team looks at that and stuff that, I look at those as well. And so things that need to come to me. So yeah, one of those is, that's how you can track what's going on. And that's how you can send us feedback as well, or questions.
That's awesome, man. We love it. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. I'm glad that we got a chance to talk. I know we've been trying to nail this down for a little while, and I'm glad that we finally got it to happen.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. It was fun.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that wraps it up for today. And next time, I don't know who we're talking to. We've got to figure that out. So stay tuned for posts about what's coming next.